sex and I know it's a difficult question.
No. I mean, you have pornography, of course, with Julius Streicher. He was really a sex maniac, but even he became too much for the party and he was relegated. And his Stürmer was really more than nasty. It was a pornographic and anti-Semitic paper. But
how did they use pornography in anti-Semitic way?
Well, I mean, it was a weapon mainly against Jews and non-Aryans. I mean, it was always a combination of Jews and German women. And this was depicted in a pornographic way. For instance, Jews assaulting pure German women, and that you could read always in the Stürmer with photos and pictures to illustrate it. Politics concerning sexuality.
And they try to control sexuality.
Yes, right.
Did they succeed?
No, and that is the most interesting thing, that a regime as tough and autocratic as a Nazi regime was, they did not succeed, and not only in 1 point or 2 points, but they failed completely. I mean, they had really very concrete aims. They wanted first that the Germans grew, that they should multiply. They wanted to increase the German population. With all
that must have been the main goal, really, to use sexuality to produce the race.
Main goal, to produce the pure Aryan race for the conquering of the East. I mean, they would need lots of people. And they postulated that each family should have at least 4 children. But there, the German women did not follow their leader. I mean, they admired them and they voted for him. But in front of the bedrooms, you know, this propaganda stopped and it had no effect. So the population decreased during the Third Reich. I mean, in spite of all the welfare that came into place, you know, people, so families with many children got money, got benefits, and were encouraged in every way. But it didn't. There was no effect. I mean, the average German family had 1 or 2 children, and it remained at that. But the propaganda said the contrary, you know. Every year Hitler thanked the German women for all the many children. They gave they got medals for 3, for 6 children.
Magda Goebbels, she was kind of a modern hero, was it?
Goebbels, yeah, of course. She had a lot of children, which she killed, as we know, 1945, and she was a model woman, but she was an exception in the Nazi League. The rest of them, I mean, Goering had 1 child, and that only with great difficulty. Some had no children. You know, Bormann, they had 10. But it was a great exception.
A lot of the ruling class you are describing have extremely double standards. They were preaching more high morality standards, and they lived what you call, as you said, an outrageous life. How did people tolerate this?
Yeah, they didn't know it. You know, there was a strict censorship, but of course there were also always jokes. And one said, so many children as the Führer, so beautiful as Goebbels, so slim and Nordic looking like Goering, you know. But these jokes were told not in public, of course, but I mean behind closed doors. Of course, politicians have double standards, but with the Nazis it was extreme.
But children out of wedlock, that was okay.
Yeah, and this was really
How come, when you have very moral standards, and you would think that children out of wedlock also would be not acceptable?
Yeah, and that was really something quite new, because it was always restricted and it was a shame to get a child, an illegitimate child. But the Nazis, in their aim to increase population, tolerated even that. And Hitler said, well, before a woman dies as an old maid, it was, I don't know what is the expression.
We all understand an old maid.
An old maid, you know, sour and bitter. I mean, it is much better she has a child and no husband.
But why was the reaction against gay men so strong, while lesbians was looked upon as a kind of playfulness?
Yeah, but lesbians, you know, it didn't hinder them, their lesbian activities, that they were often married and got children, and so it was tolerated. But men, you know, I mean, it was something else. They were considered as parasites and of ill influence to the German people, and that really is a shame.
There were even plans for polygamy?
Yeah, there was even a draft for a law, you know, and this law said that people who oppose publicly the will of the Germans to get children should be punished. This was the first draft, and after the great victory, there were really plans to alter everything, to break up the established marriage laws and to allow one man with many women, and they took their ideas from the Islamic countries and the
So this was after the
after, because of course during the war, I mean, one kept back such revolutionary ideas and thought it wise to postpone it for after the war, when there was more might and everything quiet. But they had really ideas that a man, when he had 3 children or 4 with one wife, I mean, should also have other wives. I mean, especially when his wife got older, and so he should do his duty for the German people with more than one.
Finally, Anna Maria, what about their theory? Was he not at all interested in sex?
The Führer?
Yeah.
I suppose he lived quite normally. He had only one wife, this Eva Bratholm, and I had really many interviews with servants who worked on the Obersalzberg. On the Obersalzberg in Berchtesgaden was Hitler's weekend house. And I talked to one maid, and she said always when Hitler was expected and Eva Bratholm had her period, or they expected it, she was sent to the pharmacy to get some pills to prevent this. And also the manservant of Hitler, I talked to him, and he said, well, there was like a quite normal married couple. And Hitler, I mean, contrary to Stalin or Mussolini, I mean, seems, as the sources are, that he didn't have such an eminent sexual urge I mean, he lived his life rather in the political sphere, in his fantasy of dominating the world, than with wives, women and sex.